This is the General Motors Norwood Assembly Plant in 1960. In the 1960s, the Chevrolet Bel Air was produced here, as well as the flagship Chevrolet model called the Impala. Back in the old days, when people were still a valuable part of the manufacturing process, it was a time when people took pride in their work and pride in every car they made. Right now, you're watching the production 4.6-liter V8 turbo fire engine. These Chevrolets consisted of 14,000 parts. Today, modern cars have an average of over 30,000 parts. This comparison shows how much more complex cars have become over the decades. Over 9,000 employees worked at this Norwood assembly plant in Ohio. Production began here in 1923 and closed completely in 1987. This General Motors plant also produced the Chevrolet Biscayne, Caprice, Camaro, Pontiac Firebird, and Buick Apollo. At the time of this film, Chevrolet was producing more than 1.6 million cars a year and offered a wide range of colors and trims. In those days, General Motors was the largest car company in the world. GM included Buick, Cadillac, Pontiac, and Oldsmobile. For the full-size Chevrolet alone, there were 5 engines, 5 transmissions, 7 body styles in 3 trim levels, 14 exterior colors, dozens of interior fabrics, and an almost endless list of luxury and performance options. This machine automatically checked dimensions to within 10,000ths of an inch. Pieces that were deliberately too small were also inserted into the machine to test its efficiency. This is a good illustration of how much automobile factories have moved on. The Impala, whose production you're watching right now, was Chevrolet's popular flagship and one of the best-selling American-made cars in the United States. Well, not anymore. Today, it is the best-selling Ford F-Series. Now the completed bodywork has moved on to the paintwork. Note that back then, the painters spraying the paint didn't have protective masks. This is called the marriage. In car manufacturing jargon, the marriage is the moment when the body and chassis are joined together. It's called this because the engine, gearbox, drive shafts and axles, fuel tank, and various other elements aren't fitted onto the car individually, but all at once. The assembly line was all about timing and teamwork, as well as organization. Today it's similar, but robotics play a big role, and the production process is all computer controlled. The wheels were mounted on the chassis before the body was joined to the chassis. In the 1960s, there were thousands of different color combinations to choose from. Today, car companies usually offer only a few color combinations. The reason for this is, of course, lower production costs. There were many more workers on the main production line then than today. These Chevrolet cars were assembled from individual parts from subcontractors. The whole assembly process was like a giant jigsaw puzzle, piece by piece to the finished car. Even back then, women worked in car factories in the United States. However, this was only 10% of the total workforce compared to 25% today. After the first run, the finished Chevrolet Impala was taken to the test dyno. Here, engine performance and control were tested from the driver's seat. Now the quality inspector has taken the finished Chevrolet for waterproofing testing. A heavy shower was turned on the car, and not a drop of water was allowed to enter the interior of the car. Who wouldn't want to have this yellow pickup truck in their garage? At the end of the quality control, the car is marked with a Test Pass sticker. This dealer also always checked the quality of the car offered and always polished and scented the car after delivery to the dealership. This is how the workers took a relaxing break. The facility had a number of labor disputes, including a 174-day-long strike in 1972, at the time the longest strike in GM history. As a result of the strike, 1,100 partially completed cars were scrapped or otherwise disposed of because it was not economically feasible to update them. But now back to the American Michigan factory. The Michigan truck plant's motto is first in quality and first in pride. Now you're watching the production of not only the Ford Bronco, but also the Ford F-150 light truck at Michigan Truck Plant Wayne. From 1987 until 1991, the fourth-generation Ford Bronco was produced here. There were 54,000 of these cars built in 1990. At the same time, the eighth-generation Ford F-150 was being built here. Here, the car body is lowered onto the chassis with the finished engine. These Michigan factory employees were responsible for attaching the hood, windows, and finishing the entire interior of the car. Bonding of chrome emblems and logos, including polishing, was carried out at the end of the assembly line. This senior factory worker with gray hair signed off on the output quality control. He guaranteed the quality of the cars. It took decades to get to this high position inside this factory. Now these Ford Bronco and Ford F-150 cars could begin serving American drivers. In 1995, the most Ford Broncos were produced. A total of 37,600 cars were produced that year. Ford Bronco was not produced between 1996 and 2021. The sixth generation is in production from 2021. This is marriage. It's the moment when the mechanical elements of the car, engine, gearbox, drive shafts, axles are fitted to the car's body all at once. The seats were assembled in 1995 using this manipulator arm. At the same time, work is being done on the chassis, wiring and bolting components from the bottom of the car. The entire front bumper was easily assembled like in today's car factories. For 1994, the Bronco became powered solely by V8 engines, as the 4.9-liter inline-six was withdrawn from the model line. This is how the quality control was carried out at the end of the main assembly line. The 1977 first-generation Ford Bronco has proven to be the most reliable model so far. Built upon a sturdy frame and outfitted with heavy-duty components, it exudes durability in every aspect of its design. This is how Ford production was done in the 1990s inside the Michigan assembly plant. Ford Bronco of this era was for many people the most dependable vehicle they have ever owned. You are now watching the welding and completion of the car bodywork in 1990. The Ford Bronco was produced here from 1966 to 1996. Sealant was applied to the body parts and then dipped into the tank with an anti-corrosion coating. Now the bodywork has been transported for painting. Even then, more than 30 years ago, the paint was sprayed automatically. In 1990, more than 33,000 Ford Broncos were produced here. So now you are watching the production of the 5th generation Ford Bronco. It was discontinued in 1996 and replaced by the Ford Expedition in 1997. According to Ford, the discontinuation of this model line was not related to the stigma caused by the recent police chase with O.J. Simpson, because sales of this model line were already declining prior to that incident. You are now watching the production process on the main assembly line. Here, these workers assemble the front dashboard, connect the wiring, attach the wheels, and much more. Strong adhesive is applied to the front window, and 2 factory workers attach the window to the frame. At the same time, a chassis is being worked on in another part of the factory. The engine is assembled on a separate assembly line. The finished engine is then moved to the main assembly line and mounted to the chassis frame at a predetermined time. Most employees wore safety goggles, gloves, and usually also protective overalls at work. The 5th generation Bronco carried over the previous 4.9-liter, inline-6 5.0-liter V8 and the 5.8-liter V8 engines from the previous generation. After joining the body with the chassis and engine, the main assembly line continued. The demand for Ford Bronco vehicles has been slowly growing in recent years, which is why this model is currently thriving. The lights were plugged in, the bumpers were attached, and then the car was moved to the dyno. Here, the engine performance was tested. The correct function of the gearbox and the lights were adjusted. This is the historic British Brown's Lane factory, located in Coventry, England. During the 1960s, it was the primary production site for Jaguar cars. At that time, Jaguar vehicles were especially admired for their refined engineering and elegant design, which made them stand out in the automotive world. What you're seeing now is footage from the production line of the Jaguar Mark II sedan. This particular model was manufactured between 1959 and 1967. Over the course of its production run, a total of approximately 85,000 Mark II units were built. Now you are watching the process of loading aluminum cylinder head castings onto the production track. Next, the hemispherical combustion chambers are precisely machined one by one, a key step in shaping the engine's performance. Machining the camshaft guides was one of the first operations carried out on the raw casting. To fit the hard steel valve and tappet guides, the head is heated in an oven. This thermal expansion allows the metal to widen just enough for the guides to be inserted securely. In contrast, another operation completes the drilling of all vertical holes in a single step, ensuring consistent alignment. By this stage, the head has completely cooled, and work begins on machining the valve guides and seats with exacting accuracy. Now the cylinder head is polished thoroughly until its surface gleams with a bright shine. To ensure cleanliness, high-pressure water jets are used to remove any debris, while swarf is blown away using compressed air. Next, the cooling channels within the head are sealed and filled with air. The entire unit is then submerged in water to check for any cracks or leaks, a crucial step in quality control. Finally, a thin skim is machined off the face of the head to ensure a perfectly flat sealing surface. Cylinder blocks made from high-grade cast iron are produced with the same high level of precision. Most of the machining work is handled by automated precision equipment to guarantee consistency. At this stage, the head is carefully inspected, and once it passes all checks, it is ready to be fitted onto the engine block. Now, you are watching the gear hobbing process. The teeth on the blank gear slowly begin to take shape, cut with meticulous accuracy. When finished, the dimensions are checked extremely carefully. Every face and angle is measured to within 0.02 of an inch. Lastly, the main bearings are machined to the highest standards of accuracy, with a skilled operator managing 2 machines simultaneously. The big end journals are machined in much the same way as the main bearings, and to the same high degree of precision. With these machining operations complete, the crankshaft undergoes a static balance check to ensure stability during rotation. If any imbalance is detected, small amounts of excess metal are carefully removed from the crankshaft webs, and the shaft is rechecked for balance. Both the big end and main bearings are then ground to extremely fine tolerances using high-speed carborundum wheels, producing an exceptionally smooth finish. Next, all oil flow holes on the big end journals are carefully countersunk by hand, using a fine file, allowing for better oil circulation during engine operation. Hands and machine then work together, finally lapping and polishing all bearing surfaces. A specially formulated ink solution is then poured over the crankshaft, which is magnetized beforehand. This magnetic process reveals even the smallest surface cracks, making them visible to the naked eye. This inspection step ensures that only flawless crankshafts are approved for use. Another balance check follows, this time dynamic, to confirm performance at high speed. Once again, any remaining surplus metal is removed from the webs until a perfect balance is achieved. A final critical examination follows before it is passed to engine assembly. The main assembly track is continuously supplied by several specialized sub-assembly areas. In one of these, the crankshaft, flywheel, and clutch are carefully assembled together as a single unit. Each individual component is numbered and cataloged. Then, the unit is disassembled to ensure that the exact same matched parts are reassembled later on the main track. Now, attention turns to the connecting rods and pistons, which are being prepared for installation. The connecting rods are sorted into weight groups with a maximum tolerance of just 2 grams, ensuring engine balance and smooth operation. Once grouped, the dimensions are checked again with extreme precision, down to within 0.02 of an inch. Finally, the end balance of each rod is measured. This step further refines the grouping, dividing the rods into perfectly matched sets of 6 for consistent engine performance. Next, the flywheel is attached to the rear of the crankshaft and precisely aligned. The clutch assembly is then bolted firmly into position. With the head still off the engine block, tappet clearances are checked and adjusted to meet the required specifications. Once these settings are confirmed, the cylinder head is fitted and torqued down onto the block, completing the engine and making it ready for gearbox installation. Before the cylinder head is fitted, all the exhaust and inlet valves are placed or lapped into the seats they will eventually occupy, ensuring a perfect seal. Throughout every step of the process, quality remains the top priority. The standard is upheld by maintaining one inspector for every 9 operators, ensuring constant vigilance. Each gearbox is thoroughly tested in a soundproof booth. Sensitive instruments and equally sensitive ears listen closely for any irregularities during a controlled acceleration and braking cycle. Once the gearbox passes this inspection, it is bolted directly to the engine. After the gearbox is fitted, the engine, along with the sump, is filled with oil to prepare it for live testing. But even this isn't considered sufficient. Every engine undergoes a rigorous bench test before being approved for final assembly. It begins by running the engine at a constant speed of 1,500 revolutions per minute for a full 3 hours, allowing components to settle and bed in. Following this, the engine is tested at various speeds and loads, reaching up to a maximum of 3,500 revolutions per minute to simulate real-world driving conditions. You are now watching the main assembly process. First, the front axle and suspension system are assembled and built up as a complete unit, ready to be integrated with the rest of the chassis. Next, both the front and rear axles, already assembled and complete with disc brakes, are mounted onto a special trestle designed to hold everything in perfect alignment. This is immediately followed by the careful installation of the engine and gearbox unit. Once in place, the entire assembly is thoroughly inspected to ensure that everything is correctly aligned and properly secured. Meanwhile, over in the paint shop, work is progressing on the bodywork. The car body is mounted on a special rig that allows full 360-degree rotation. Finally, the transmission shaft is connected, linking the powertrain to the drivetrain. It's worth noting that an astonishing number of these tasks were performed manually, relying on the skill and precision of the workers. The body then passes through a complete washing and phosphating plant. This process removes all contaminants and prepares the surface by etching it slightly, which helps subsequent paint layers adhere more effectively. Following that, metal finishing is carried out by hand. This step eliminates minor surface imperfections to achieve a flawless exterior. During this stage, the body shell is also dipped into a tank of primer paint. This ensures that hard-to-reach areas, such as the underside and internal box sections, are fully protected against rust. Finally, the body is rubbed down by hand, a sealer coat is applied, and the entire shell is baked in an oven to harden and cure the paint, bringing it one step closer to the final product. After the baking process, the painted car body is allowed to cool naturally. Once cooled, it is carefully vacuumed and rubbed down by hand to remove any dust or fine particles, ensuring the surface is perfectly clean and smooth for a flawless finish. With spraying and inspection finalized, the body is transferred to the assembly line for the next phase of construction. You are now watching two factory workers installing the windows, a job requiring both precision and care. After that, the door and window catches, made of heavy polished chrome, are securely attached, adding both function and a touch of elegance. At the end of this line, a signature finishing detail is added, the fitting of Jaguar's distinguished front radiator grille. The first task here is the installation of the vehicle's wiring harness, which connects and powers the entire electrical system. Then, sound-absorbing and heat-insulating felt is fitted inside the shell, helping to create a quieter, more comfortable cabin environment. Wiring the dashboard with its array of instruments and switches is a particularly delicate task. For this, the steady hands and fine motor skills of female workers were often relied upon. Specially designed mounting pads are placed between the body and the chassis to insulate against road vibrations and improve ride comfort. To complete the exterior, heavy-duty chrome bumpers and overriders are fitted to every model, providing both protection and a final polished look. Now the wheels, selected according to the specifications and preferences of the future owner, are carefully attached to the car. An adjustable steering wheel is also fitted, allowing the driver to customize their driving position for comfort and control. With these components in place, the car is now able to stand proudly on its own four wheels for the very first time. The fuel tank is then filled with petrol, and the vehicle is driven under its own power to the nearby trim and finish track. Trimming is deliberately carried out at this later stage of production. This unique approach helps prevent any potential damage to the car's interior while the rest of the vehicle is being assembled, a method not commonly used in most car manufacturing processes. Each vehicle requires approximately 3 full hides of leather for its interior. These hides are carefully selected, matched for both color and grain, and meticulously examined to ensure that any blemishes, scars, or imperfections are avoided. All leather-covered parts are prepared in a separate trim shop, employing a very high proportion of craftsmen. The woodwork is carefully matched into sets and is different in each car. Jaguar's own workshops also produce the beautifully grained veneered woodwork, which is a feature of all their cars. The floor is covered with thick carpets which have been tailored in matching colors. Almost at the end of production, seats are fitted. They have a steel frame and are padded with foam rubber. If required, a special mechanism for reclining the seat and holding it in any position can be fitted. At this stage, a thorough and careful inspection of both the exterior and interior is carried out, ensuring every detail meets the highest standards. Any minor adjustments or corrections that may be necessary are promptly addressed by skilled technicians. Now, this beautiful Jaguar is ready to see the light of day for the very first time. Each Jaguar Mark II underwent a rigorous road test covering a minimum of 30 miles. During this test drive, the car's performance was closely monitored, and any small issues were identified and corrected through fine adjustments, guaranteeing that every vehicle left the factory in perfect working order. This Jaguar Mark II is one of Jaguar's most important models. The most powerful model had up to 220 horsepower. It was these cars that were produced the most, a total of 30,000 cars with a 3.8-liter engine. Please write in the comments section whether you would prefer this British classic Jaguar or if you favor American cars like Chevrolet. A further trip is then made on the open road with a different tester at the wheel, and only when he is satisfied all is well as he returned to the factory. The bodywork undergoes a critical examination, and any rectification necessary is carried out. Now ready for its lucky owner, it will be delivered within a day or so. This factory was also responsible for producing the iconic Jaguar E-Type, which was manufactured between 1961 and 1975. Over the course of its production, a total of approximately 72,000 of these legendary sports cars were built, earning the model worldwide acclaim for its performance and design. The Jaguar factory at Browns Lane eventually closed its doors in 2005, marking the end of an era in British automotive history. Today, Jaguar is undergoing a period of transition as it works to reinvent and rebrand itself under new ownership, aiming to redefine its identity for the future. This is the production process inside the Volkswagen factory near Emden. This is what the assembly of the popular Volkswagen Beetle looked like in 1974. A staggering 6,800 Beetle cars were produced here every day. Officially, these cars were sold only in West Germany and other Western European countries. However, the border between East and West Germany was not very strict before 1961. Volkswagen Beetle was built since the 1950s, and even after 1961, there might have been some people who brought one of these cars to East Germany. Volkswagen's share of all cars produced in West Germany reached 49% in the 1970s. In 1968, the Type 1 was officially given the name Beetle from Der Käfer, German for beetle. Between 1940 and the end of production in 2003, an incredible 23 million Volkswagen Beetles were produced. The Port of Emden is the most important port complex of the Volkswagen Group. It is Europe's third largest car distribution port and a key center for the import and export of new cars. Right now you can see the bodywork of a 1970s Volkswagen Beetle being assembled. This factory worker carried out quality control according to a set checklist, similar to today's car factories. The marriage is the stage of connecting the chassis and engine to the car body. Today, the Volkswagen plant in Emden produces the ID4, ID7, and ID7 Tourer models. This is how the Volkswagen Beetle seats and wheels were assembled in Germany. One of the most iconic cars in automotive history, the Beetle is noted for its distinctive shape. Now the cars have been started for the first time and taken to the dyno test line. Here, the engine power and correct speed settings were checked. Volkswagen Beetle cars were offered in a wide range of colors and equipment, plus many upgrades. The Volkswagen Embed factory was founded in 1964 and employs around 8,000 workers. Let's take a look at how the car performs in the individual tables. The Volkswagen Beetle doesn't have a very good reliability history. According to various surveys, the Beetle scored 44.8 points in reliability, which puts it at the lower end of the scale. It's also one of Volkswagen's lesser performing cars. This is how Volkswagen Beetle production always started, in a department called the Pest Shop. After its discontinuation in Germany, production of the Volkswagen Beetle continued in Australia, Mexico, and Nigeria. Now you are watching authentic historical footage of the Volkswagen Beetle being built in a factory in Mexico. Now the entire body of the car has been dipped in an anti-corrosion solution. Different car configurations and colors meet on the same assembly line. According to the attached birth certificate of each car, you know what equipment it should have. In the case of the Beetle, the engine is inserted from below into the chassis frame. In 2003, the bodywork was already being painted by robotic hands. Volkswagen's old classic car logo has been stuck on the Beetle's bonnet. Production of the Volkswagen Beetle began at this Puebla plant in Mexico in July 2003. Its production span of 65 years is the longest of any single generation of automobile, and its total production of over 23 million is the most of any car of a single platform. To celebrate the occasion, Volkswagen marketed a series of 3,000 Beetles as Ultima Edición, Final Edition. Once production is complete, the cars are loaded onto a huge ferry and shipped to markets around the world. The local market referred to the Beetle as the Vocho. While the design of the Beetle changed little over its lifespan, Volkswagen implemented over 78,000 incremental updates. Typically subtle, these alterations usually involved minor updates to the exterior, interior, colors, and lighting. Other notable changes involved new engines, models, and systems, such as updated dashboards and hydraulic brakes. Volkswagen Beetle, officially the Volkswagen Type 1, is a small family car produced by the German company Volkswagen from 1938 to 2003. During its 65 years of production, Volkswagen produced the Type 1 in many locations around the world. Production of the Beetle was possible through agreements with companies like Chrysler in Mexico and the Studebaker-Packard Corporation, which assembled cars imported in complete knockdown form. The Beetle was introduced to the Mexican market in 1954 and began official production 10 years later. The introduction of a new taxi regulation in Mexico City, requiring only four-door vehicles to be permitted to prevent robberies, influenced Volkswagen's decision to the end of the production of the Beetle in 2003. In the US, the Beetle became popular thanks to a great advertising campaign called Think Small. Today, that final Beetle can be seen at Volkswagen's Auto Museum in Wolfsburg, Germany, where it remains on display. It was a small family car with a rear engine designed by Ferdinand Porsche. Please write me an opinion on the Volkswagen Beetle in the comments section.
Welcome inside the American Ford factory. In 1995, a record number of Ford Broncos were produced here, over 37,600 of them in total. This is how Ford production was done in the 1990s inside the Michigan assembly plant. This is how the engine was mounted in the chassis frame. This part of the production process is called the marriage. It is the moment when the mechanical elements of the car, engine, transmission, drive shafts, axles are mounted on the car body at the same time. As you can see right now, the entire front bumper was easy to assemble, like in today's car factories. This is how the quality control was carried out at the end of the main assembly line. Michigan Truck Plant has a slogan, first in quality and first in pride. Ford Bronco of this era was for many people the most reliable car they have ever owned. Ford Bronco was not produced between 1996 and 2021. The sixth generation is in production from 2021. You are now watching the welding and completion of the bodywork in 1994. The Ford Bronco was produced here from 1966 to 1996. For 1994, the Bronco became powered solely by V8 engines, as the 4.9-litre inline-six was withdrawn from the model line. In 1994, more than 33,000 Ford Broncos were produced here. Sealant was applied to the body parts and then dipped into the tank with an anti-corrosion coating. Now the bodywork has been transported for painting. Even then, more than 30 years ago, the paint was sprayed automatically. So now you're watching the production of the fifth generation Ford Bronco. It was discontinued in 1996 and replaced by the Ford Expedition in 1997. According to Ford, the discontinuation of the model line was unrelated to any stigma created from the then recent O.J. Simpson police chase, as sales of the model line had been in decline previous to the incident. You are now watching the production process on the main assembly line. Here, these workers assemble the front dashboard, connecting the wiring, fitting the wheels, fitting the seats, and finishing the interior. Factory workers used a crane to lower the rear roof of a Ford Bronco. A thick adhesive is applied to the front window and 2 employees attach the window to the frame. The entire engine of the car was assembled in a separate part of the factory and arrived at the main assembly line already assembled. It was then mounted on the steel chassis frame. After joining the body with the chassis and engine, the main assembly line continued. The lights were plugged in, the bumpers were attached, and then the car was moved to the dyno. Here the engine performance was tested. The correct function of the gearbox and the lights were adjusted. Now you're watching the production of not only the Ford Bronco, but also the Ford F-150 light truck at Michigan Truck Plant Wayne. From 1987 until 1991, the 4th generation Ford Bronco was produced here. There were 54,000 of these cars built in 1990. At the same time, the 8th generation Ford F-150 was being built here. Here, the car body is lowered onto the chassis with the finished engine. These Michigan factory employees were responsible for attaching the hood, windows, and finishing the entire interior of the car. Please let me know if you like these old but reliable cars from Ford. I will be glad for your experience. Bonding of chrome emblems and logos, including polishing, was carried out at the end of the assembly line. This senior factory worker with grey hair signed off on the output quality control. He guaranteed the quality of the cars. Now, these Ford Bronco and Ford F-150 vehicles could begin serving American drivers. It is Europe's 3rd largest car distribution port and a key centre for the import and export of new cars. Right now you can see the bodywork of a 1970s, the Beetle, being assembled. This factory worker carried out quality control according to a set checklist, similar to today's car factories. The marriage is the stage of connecting the chassis and engine to the car body. Today, the Volkswagen plant in Emden produces the ID.4, ID.7 and ID.7 Tourer models. This is how the Volkswagen Beetle seats and wheels were assembled in Germany. Now the cars have been started for the first time and taken to the dyno test line. This is where engine performance, gear shifting and other engine parameters are tested. Everything must be satisfactory. Volkswagen Beetle cars were offered in a wide range of colours and equipment, plus many upgrades. It was the constant improvement of the car that was the main difference from the Eastern European Trabant. That's also why Beetles were in high demand at the end of the millennium, unlike Trabants. After its discontinuation in Germany, production of the Volkswagen Beetle continued in Australia, Mexico and Nigeria. Now you're watching authentic historical footage of the Volkswagen Beetle being built in a factory in Mexico. Now the entire body of the car was immersed in an anti-corrosion solution. This was followed by spraying the final paint using robotic hands, in this case, yellow. Volkswagen's old classic car logo has been stuck on the Beetle's bonnet. The Volkswagen Emden factory was founded in 1964, and since then, hundreds of thousands of people from all over Germany have worked here. Workers rotate through shifts in order to produce as many cars as possible. Production of the Volkswagen Beetle began at this Puebla plant in Mexico in July 2003. Its production span of 65 years is the longest of any single generation of automobile, and its total production of over 23 million is the most of any car of a single platform. To celebrate the occasion, Volkswagen marketed a series of 3,000 Beetles as Ultima Edición, Final Edition. Once production is complete, the cars are loaded onto a huge ferry and shipped to markets around the world. While the design of the Beetle changed little over its lifespan, Volkswagen implemented over 78,000 incremental updates. Typically subtle, these alterations usually involved minor updates to the exterior, interior, colours and lighting. More noteworthy changes have comprised new engines, models and systems, such as updated dashboards and hydraulic braking. During its 65 years of production, Volkswagen produced the Type 1 in many locations around the world. Production of the Beetle was possible through agreements with companies like Chrysler in Mexico and the Studebaker-Packard Corporation, which assembled cars imported in complete knockdown form. The Beetle was introduced to the Mexican market in 1954 and began official production 10 years later. The local market referred to the Beetle as the Vocho. The introduction of a new taxi regulation in Mexico City, requiring only four-door vehicles to be permitted to prevent robberies, influenced Volkswagen's decision to the end of the production of the Beetle in 2003. One of the most iconic cars in automotive history, the Beetle is noted for its distinctive shape. In the United States, the Beetle became popular thanks to a great advertising campaign called Think Small. Today, that final Beetle can be seen at Volkswagen's Auto Museum in Wolfsburg, Germany, where it remains on display. This is the Wartburg factory in East Germany. VEB Automobilwerk Eisenach produced reliable Wartburg cars inside this factory. You will see the production process from the beginning At the end will be this finished Wartburg car. The whole production started in these furnaces where the steel parts of the engine were cast. This factory was located near the German town of Eisenach since 1898. Production ended on April 1991 and the factory was acquired by Opel. There are still some cars in a roadworthy condition, and Wartburg owners' clubs exist throughout Europe. The first model Wartburg 311 was produced between 1956 and 1965. Some Wartburgs are still used as rally cars. Now the Wartburg body connection is being completed. Tailgate and rear fenders were made of glass fibre reinforced plastic. The Wartburg 353, known in some export markets as the Wartburg Knight, is a medium-sized family car produced by the East German car manufacturer AWE for their Wartburg brand. Now you can see that the painting was done as a combination of manual and machine spraying. The painted body of the Wartburg was properly polished with large brushes, as in a car wash. It was the successor of the Wartburg 311 and was itself succeeded by the Wartburg 1.3. The Wartburg 353 was produced from 1966 to 1988, becoming the Wartburg with the longest production run. During its lifetime, it saw several changes and improvements, the most recognizable of which came in 1985 with a front facelift, a slightly different layout around the engine block, and a new carburettor. Powerful cranes built into the factory ceiling were also used to move heavy loads inside the factories. Domestically, it was used for all government transportation, sometimes as a Volkspolizei police car. However, due to the nature of the planned economy, deliveries to private owners could take 10 to 15 years. Like other Eastern Europe cars, it was known for its low price in export markets. Because of its forward centre of gravity and front-wheel drive, the car had typical front-wheel drive road handling, usually displaying significant understeer, especially in wet conditions. Now the new cars have been tested on the dyno. This is how the engine performance was tested. These Wartburgs Knight have 993 cubic centimetre two-stroke L3 engines. Wartburgs were exported to most European markets and South Africa. The 4-speed manual transmission has often been criticised. The 353 was a reasonable success throughout the Eastern Bloc, with front-wheel drive. Its negatives were due to its outmoded two-stroke engine. The last modernisation of Wartburg took place in 1988, when the car got the new designation 1.3 and a 4-stroke VW designed engine with a 1.3 litre displacement. As you can see, most manufacturing processes are not much different from those of today. Of course, there are a lot of changes, but it is true that the main stages of production have not changed since the beginning of the factories. There were also 3 body styles of the Wartburg 353: limousine, sedan, tourist, combi, and trans pickup. In the deluxe version, electronic ignition, 5-speed gearbox, front and rear fog lights, an alarm system and central lock door were available.